TIL health professionals are more likely than the public at large to buy generic painkillers, because they realize that they're just as effective as name brands. This is not even remotely true. There have been several large scandals involving pharmaceutical companies in third world countries simply not doing any quality control. Also, just because a drug is generic does not mean the manufacturer has to publish a protocol for making the drug. So generic companies will try to approximate and it could be slightly off. Peter Attia did a great podcast on this with the author of the book Bottle of Lies. Some generics may be close to as good as the original, but they just need to match general parameters. So, painkillers are generally fine to take generics of because of the wide margin of error associated with them. Generics for narrow therapeutic window drugs like your mom's thyroid medicine, your grandmom's blood thinner, or grandpop's anti-rejection meds are not to be fucked with. Also, if you have HIV and don't want AIDS, you know what keeps your viral load down and what will fucking kill you. Not all generics are good, but it's a good rule of thumb. Like I'd before you accept after seeing the multitude of other exceptions. It's perfectly okay to buy a fancier, name brand thing just because it makes you feel good. Life isn't all about doing things the cheapest, most efficient, and rational, sensible, practical, economical way. But yeah, I frequently go for the generic versions of stuff. Sometimes the brand name version of a product is better, for example Band-Aids versus generic adhesive bandages. Other times it's just 50 milligrams of chemical and nobody should pay for the brand name version except billionaires who should have to pay top dollar. I used to work in a retail pharmacy. Had a guy come in asking for an over-the-counter sleep aid. Explained to him that the only over-the-counter sleep aids are allergy meds that make you drowsy, but if you want to try one, get the $1 store brand bottle of 14 pills. He nods, and then grabs the $10 branded sleep aid. I showed him the labels and how each one has the exact same ingredients. Wouldn't budge because this one says it's for sleep on the box. Gave up and let him spend 10x more than he needed to. It's honestly baffling to me that Advil Tylenol even exists. I can see other products being a bit confusing for the consumer, but generic ibuprofen acetaminophen is written on the box of those products. Meanwhile, I see these people buy generic food brands to save a buck. Man, facepalming. Oh no, I worked in a juice factory as a teenager, and in some cases a generic food is also the same. Like Sunripe orange apple would also get poured into Safeway generic. Just read the label for the active ingredients. Went to Walmart to get small band-aids for acne spot. First by nature I went to the band-aid section and found it, kept walking around and went to the facial cream section and there were 50 different brands, all under 10 band-aids for $8. The one in the band-aids, same exact thing, ingredients and all, it was 45 band-aids for $8. No different, and I like the packaging better on the higher quantity one. Wife is a pediatric surgical nurse. You only refer to drugs in the hospital or operating room by their generic names. No brand names ever. Because you can get mixed up by brand names. The name of the drug is the name of the drug. Buy and take that. Oh, and when they say don't eat or drink 12 hours before surgery, that is advice you don't skip. That is to keep you alive. For kids it is even more important. Physician here. A great deal of medications differ between brand name versus generic, whether it be the similarity of the molecule that is the active ingredient, the inactive ingredients used, the concentrations, pharmacokinetics of the capsule used, etc. I try going brand name when it comes to medications, and I suggest this to my patients also. Some drugs it doesn't matter, but that's not easy to track. Generics only have to be 20 as close to the original. That means if the original has 20 more of an active ingredient and the generic has 20 less, you have a difference of 40. That's why when a doctor specifies brand name in the case of closely regulated and specific dose medications like anti-epileptics, it needs to be the brand name. There was a news report of all the shortages of pain meds where I live. They showed all the empty shelves, and right next to where the name brand stuff was, the shelves were stocked with the generic equivalent that most people won't buy. Rolling eyes face. I'm definitely not a health professional, I'm just a tight arse, so I buy the cheap stuff. I recently read Bottle of Lies, and am much more in favor of spending the dollar on name brand stuff now. Hospitals have lists of generics, and specific manufacturers of them, that they will and will not use. A lot of them are total crapshoots for quality and efficacy. Name brands have quality control. I can't be the only one who can tell the difference between dollar store ibuprofen and real Tylenol of equivalent dosage. The same goes for supplements. Some brands are simply just scams compared to the more trusted sources. Sometimes generics don't work as well as the name brand. Different coding, Changed how they work for some people. I had trouble with a medication when I was given generic after using the name 2 cents. Regular analgesics maybe, but this is not exactly true for prescription drugs of all kinds. Same ingredients, yes, but they have a high percentage of wiggle room on how much filler you can put in generics. This really shows the power of advertising. People often think the brand name like Advil is better than the generic. They are both the same in effectiveness, but with advertising people believe otherwise. When you buy name brands, you're paying extra for the fancy packaging and marketing so the product can stand out on shelves. Generic medications are just as effective, but they don't look as pretty. Also, one of the groups that is the most likely to pay for name brand lawyers. The public at large smokes fentanyl pills they got from some dude on a bicycle off of tin foil with a straw. I don't think the name brand gets called into question. Name brand Flonase smells and tastes better than the off-brand in my opinion. I still get the off-brand because it's way cheaper, but I would prefer the name brand. If I'm paying, it's generic. If I've already hit my out-of-pocket max for the year, I'm asking for name brand every time. Because fuck insurance companies, they are not as effective. They are exactly the same thing. The Tylenol label is the only difference. I'm a nurse PTW. Just buy the generic. Anecdotally, my family and family friends who are chemists are less likely to buy brand name cleaners and chemicals and vodka, for the same reasons. Also, when the doctor prescribes 800 mg ibuprofen and I'm supposed to go to a pharmacy and pick up the RX instead of just swallowing 4x 200 mg pills, there is some chemical difference sometimes that can cause allergic reactions for someone versus the name brand. Very specific, but it does happen. You got to look at the active ingredients. Compare brand names with the generic. Usually the generic is cheaper and slightly more potent. To be fair, pain killing is something that the placebo effect can help with, so getting the name brand would help make that happen. I've only ever bought generic or store brand. Never could wrap my head around someone paying twice as much for the same thing. Can confirm. Source: I'm currently in med school and we just went over this in my intro to pharmacology class. My sister never buys generic medicine. I guess a few dollars doesn't hurt to keep your mind at ease. For them, the placebo effect is real. For the general populace wanting that name brand stuff, lol. Painkillers. NSAIDs are hit and miss. Narcotics, not so much. Why fuss a pharmacist, and I was a pharm tech. Med cabinet is all generic, can confirm, until you hear about India withdrawing licenses for generic cough syrup manufacturers. It's like those people that put premium gas in their car that doesn't need it. I work at cough syrup production. It's all THR, same shit, generic and branded, except no other brand of ibuprofen has the sugar coating that Advil has. I never buy name brand drugs. I also buy a lot of store brand food, etc. My doctors always say ibuprofen, but then they also always say Tylenol. The marketing is too good. Advil just works better, my brain tells me. Seems like I think like a doctor, or more than likely I'm just cheap. I pay extra for Advil because it has a candy coating.